So, we are in week 2 of The Pursuit, and last week we talked about how the pursuit doesn't truly begin until the day we say, I do. We also talked about how at some point you'll feel the desire to find someone to spend the rest of your life with. And that desire is a good desire. It's good because God wired that desire into each and every one of us. And he even announces it in Genesis that it's not good for men and women to be alone. So that leads us to here, week 2. And we're beginning to look at what it truly means to pursue someone. Let me be clear, though, the point of this series isn't to tell you when to date, because only your parents or guardians can set that boundary. What we're trying to do is equip you with wisdom and practical ways you can start working on yourself. I believe this series can not only make you a better person, but give you a great foundation for an amazing marriage. So, tonight, I want to take you to a very scandalous book of the Bible. It's called the Song of Solomon. In Song of Solomon, we open up on this newly married couple, Solomon and his wife. And they are head over heels in love. They're in that mushy-gushy level of love that makes you write bad poetry, and the other person's so in love that they actually like your bad poetry. These two lovebirds are not just writing poetry, but they're singing to each other. Now, have you ever been so in love that your life turned into a musical? That's exactly what's happening right now. But Song of Solomon is so much more than a cheesy love song. It's an account of a husband and a wife pursuing each other. And it puts modern day married couples to shame. So, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be camping out in Song of Solomon. And I'm going to show you 3 amazing ways that Solomon and his bride pursue each other. In the first chapter of Song of Solomon, Solomon and his wife are talking to each other the night before their wedding day. The way these two talk to each other is the equivalent to 2 love-struck teenagers on the phone saying, "You hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. Okay, let's hang up together. You didn't hang up, did you?" These two are madly in love to the point it makes them look stupid. And they don't care who sees them acting crazy. And that's where the conversation takes a really interesting turn. Song of Solomon 1:15. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves. Song of Solomon chapter 2, 8 and 9. The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes, leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice. Now, do you see how they talk to each other? He tells her that she's beautiful and compares her to this peaceful, domesticated bird that is full of grace. And she compares him to this wild animal in pursuit. He can't be tamed, and he is here for the chase. Now, to you and I, these come off as just compliments in the slew of romance. But what they are doing is so important in any relationship. What they're doing goes beyond just saying that they're attracted to each other. What they're doing is acknowledging each other's origin. He acknowledges her origin of beauty, and she acknowledges his origin of the wild. Now, everybody loves an origin story. We love seeing how superheroes get their superpowers, and we love seeing the rags to riches backstory of celebrities. But we never really fully seem to understand our own origin story. Now, if you're a Christian or you're raised in a Christian culture, you probably understand that our origin story comes from God. But we tend to glance over some of the most important facts of our origin story. So first, let's talk about the origin of Adam. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Then the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living creature. Adam's origin story starts in a critical part of the creation story. The earth is a vast terrain of wilderness that's untouched by any influence. Mountains remain unconquered, and animals still roam around untamed. And then God dips his hands in the dust of the earth, and he forms man. Every other creation up until this point was spoken into being, but this was God's masterpiece. So he gets his hands dirty and carefully forms Adam. Already, God has done something entirely different by forming man instead of speaking him into existence. But then God goes even deeper in forming man, and he breathes into his nostrils the breath of life, and man comes alive. You might be familiar with this story of creation, but you notice where God creates Adam? He creates him in the wild. Your mom looked for the safest hospital setting to give birth to you. But God forms Adam in a world surrounded by the wild. You see, there's something adventurous about this origin story and how God picked out this spot of Adam's creation. But then God takes a man out of the wilderness and places him in the garden. Genesis 2, verse 15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. This is where we see the origin story of Eve take place, in this beautiful garden that is the essence of perfection. So Adam works in the garden and interacts with every animal by giving them a name. And God knows that it's not good for man to be alone, so he vows that he will make a helper that is perfect for Adam. And this is where we come to the creation of Eve. Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 and 22. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on the man. And while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Adam was formed in the wild. Eve was formed in the garden. The two are instantly connected, but their origin stories are drastically different. One was in the dangerous wild, the other cultivated beauty of a garden. But there was one key factor that united them and made them feel complete, and that was the image that they were created in. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Adam and Eve were both created in the image of God. The reflection of God's creative spirit was inside both of them, and God's likeness reflected in how these two operated. Man was made in the wild, and if you spend enough time around enough guys, you'll pick up quickly that men are naturally drawn to competition and to fighting. And it's not that girls aren't supposed to be like that, it's just that men are wired in God's passionate warrior spirit. And women are more naturally inclined to be more compassionate and nurturing. And they're more likely to stop and admire things that are beautiful. And that's not to say that men can't be loving or admire a field of flowers. Women were created in the garden, and they are wired in God's compassion. And his mystery has been ingrained in the soul of a woman, which is why women are more likely to be drawn to beauty. Man and women are very different in some aspects, yet the difference is what makes the oneness so complete. They're like the sun and the moon, or better yet, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They complement each other and they create a harmony. And that's why Solomon looks at his wife and says, "You are beautiful." And she responds, "You are wild." Both are acknowledging their origin. And when you know your origin, you know how your marriage can be one. Fathers are more likely to fight for their sons' and daughters' honor. Mothers are more likely to offer patient affection to their children. both are operating in harmony with the image that God has placed them in. It doesn't take a genius to know how different we all are. God placed different qualities of himself in man and in woman. But there is one quality that both of us share. We both crave adventure, and it's when we can see our desire for adventure in our origin, that's when we can start pursuing each other. So if you're alive today, and I hope you all are, then know this. God has one crazy adventure planned for you. He had a wild adventure planned for Adam as well. And that's why when Adam was created, God made this statement in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. It's not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper fit for him. It's in this statement that we get to see that we've gotten the pursuit so wrong. Most people believe that chasing after that special person is the adventure. We believe that dating is the pursuit and that making that person happy is the adventure. But God never says, I will make Eve and she will be the adventure. No, God says, I will make a helper perfect for him. Eve was never meant to be Adam's adventure. She was designed to go with him on the adventure. Yet there are so many men who make women their adventure, and it leads them into pursuing their girlfriend or their spouse. There are so many women who think that they are the adventure, and when they have nothing left to give, their self-esteem is shattered because they don't feel like they're good enough. For all the guys listening, know this. Deep down, women never want to be your adventure. They want to go with you on the adventure. Yes, they dream of a knight in shining armor, treating them like a princess. But they were also designed to do great things. Women crave a life of adventure just as much as you. For all the ladies listening, know this. You were not made to be treated cheaply. You were the final act of creation. And when God formed you, he made you with a purpose and a calling to do great things. So, if no one is the adventure, then what is the adventure? That's the question that comes up when people start to realize that no one can be the adventure. To fully understand what the adventure is, you have to really understand who you are and where you came from. If you're a guy, do you see yourself as a warrior created in the image of God? Do you see the wild passion that God has made you in? If you're a girl, do you know that God has made you in his beauty? Do you see yourself as a person capable of captivating compassion and love? Do both of you know and see the purpose that God has created you for? The adventure is simply this: a life spent pursuing the Creator and discovering the person he made you to be. That's why no one can be the adventure. You have to discover who you are, and you'll never find that in another human being. You can only find it by pursuing a relationship with God. God made you in his image, and he is the only one who can tell you what you're made of. You'll never find out who you are by dating. If you try to find out who you are by dating someone, then you're literally practicing for divorce. Now, that sounds harsh, but there are so many marriages that end on the notion that I just never knew who I was. What they're really saying is, I thought this person would show me who I was. I thought they could complete me. I thought they were the adventure. Now, knowing who you are can only come from knowing God. We talked about this last week, but it's only reinforced with knowing this. No one can make you complete. Only God can do that. God brings the oneness to marriages, and the oneness only happens when both people know who they are and allow God to make them one. Do you remember when Adam and Eve became one? Genesis chapter 2, verse 25. And the man and his wife were both naked, and they were not ashamed. Now, the point of this message, again, we're not telling you when to date or discourage you from dating. The point is to set you up for the best marriage possible in your future. But to get there, you need to discover who you are. You need to embark on your adventure of pursuing God, because knowing who you are can only come from knowing God. Today, we focused on what the adventure looks like before you get married. Now, next week, we're going to be talking about how the adventure changes once you get married. We're going to be talking about what the pursuit looks like and the day that you say, I do, and the crazy adventure that God has for every married couple.